Okay, are we ready?
I think so.
Okay.
So, good evening, Trenton Public Schools community members. I am so excited that you have joined us tonight for our Superintendent Search Community Forum. I thank you for taking your time out to engage with us and to speak with us more as we engage in our next superintendent search. I am Teron Tice McKnight. I am the Vice President of the Trenton Board of Education, and I take the honor of leading the committee that is focused on getting our next superintendent. So today we are here to present to you results of our superintendent search community survey. This is a part of our active community engagement piece in which we are seeking to hear your voices. It is very important to us that we understand your sense of direction for the district in terms of what a superintendent looks like, what characteristics you want that person to have, what priorities you would like them to see put forth. And we're taking this opportunity to make sure that we hear your voices through this survey. So we have here with us today Jesse Adams from the New Jersey School Board Association. And Jesse will be facilitating the meeting, giving you the results of that survey, and pretty much walking through the process of what we've been doing over the past couple of months. This information that we're using from the survey is very important. We will be using that to choose the candidates we plan to interview. We'll be using your information to choose what interview questions we will be asking these candidates, and ultimately using this to develop our criteria for choosing our next superintendent. So your feedback is valuable. We truly appreciate it. And I hope you get something out of the results of our survey. Currently, the survey is posted. All the board members have copies of the survey, and we'll be posting that survey results to our website so that whomever isn't here on this meeting today can definitely view them and understand the sense of where the public stands in terms of our next superintendent search. So we have a very short agenda, very basic. Jesse's going to facilitate the results of the survey. We're going to allow some time for public comment. In that period, we will be asking people to keep their comments to 2 minutes. We love to hear from you, although we do expect that you keep your comments to be respectful of the time and respectful of others on this call. We will give specific instructions on how to raise your hand and enter information in the chat room, but feel free to use the chat as we move along. But we'll be giving more specific directions on how to do your comment when we get to that period. At the very end, we'll have some final comments from our president, Eddie Lane, and we have 2 other board members here on the call if they would like to say something, and then we will end. So without further ado, I give you Jesse Adams from the New Jersey School Board Association.
Thank you very much, Teron, and good evening, everyone. Welcome, and I'm glad you're taking time out of your evening tonight to spend a little bit of time with us, because we're in the middle of a pretty important process as it relates to the children of the Trenton Public Schools. Looking for a superintendent. The board has heard me say this before, and every board that I work with, I say the most important thing they do for improving student achievement in a school district is the hiring of the superintendent, because that is your educational leader, the person that the board relies on to help embark on the journey that you're trying to go on as it relates to taking care of every child in your district. So as Teron said, I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to cover a couple of things this evening. First, let me just real quick on the agenda for my presentation. We're going to basically cover 2 areas. One's going to be up front. We're going to talk a little bit about legal requirements and the process and timeline that the board is working to. And then we're going to jump into the survey. I'm going to go walk through the different survey questions that hopefully most of you were participants of, and you'll get to see what your fellow stakeholders how those results stacked up. And then, as Taran said, the last part we'll close out with questions and comments. And as she said, you'll get further instructions. But if you have a burning question that arises, don't hesitate to put it into the chat room. The board committee that's participating tonight, they're monitoring the chat room. So when we get to the questions and comments period, we'll be able to take those as well. Right. So let's talk about legal requirements in the state of New Jersey. The biggest one is the board is legally responsible for the hiring of a superintendent. They have that sole responsibility. It's not the responsibility of a committee or of any subgroups or organizations. The law is pretty explicit. The superintendent, the hiring of a superintendent is the sole responsibility of the Board of Education. They're responsible for the hiring of one employee. Yeah, I know sometimes folks will go to a board meeting, they'll see the board vote on the hiring of staff. Those staff hirings are based on the recommendation of the superintendent. The board is actually required and has responsibility for the hiring of one specific individual, and that's the superintendent. So they're responsible for the interview process, the search, the whole 9 yards as it relates to a superintendent. All superintendents in the state of New Jersey must possess the school administrator certificate to be a superintendent. If they are a sitting superintendent, most of them all have that school administrator certificate. The other option is a certificate of eligibility. What that means is they meet all the basic requirements, education, et cetera, of a superintendent, but they haven't yet sat in the seat of a superintendent. So they have a certificate of eligibility, which says they're qualified. They just need to move into a position where they can go through the mentoring program. It's a 1 year program that they have to go through, and then they get their standard certificate. All superintendents, if you come from out of state to New Jersey, you have to become a New Jersey resident within 1 year. The board is allowed to offer a contract to a superintendent that can be as little as 3 years up to a maximum of 5 years. Any contract, once a contract is agreed to between the board and the superintendent candidate, it has to get the executive county superintendent's approval. That's what ECS stands for. Every county, all of the 21 counties has an executive county superintendent who represents the Department of Education. So for Trenton, the Mercer County executive county superintendent will have final approval on the contract that they negotiate with a candidate. And the terms and conditions of a contract, the compensation, all of that is subject to negotiations between the candidate and the Board of Education. We started off the process late last year with an advertisement. Some of you may have seen this posted on your website. The real thing I'll point out on your advertisement is the board took the steps to cast what we call the widest net possible to attract as many qualified applicants as possible. And they did that by having one firm requirement. The person had to have either the certification, school administrator certificate, or a certificate of eligibility. That was required for your application to be accepted for this search. A couple of other areas that they identified as preferred would be superintendent, assistant superintendent, or central office experience, and a minimum of 3 to 5 years of school-based experience, such as a principal or as a teacher. But those were not required. Those were just preferences that the board had, but the only requirement that was firm was a certificate, which meant basically all qualified there was no restriction. All qualified applicants could apply to Trenton. The breadth of where your search was advertised, obviously it was, number one, it was posted on the New Jersey School Boards Association Jobs Board. That's important because out of all of the New Jersey School Boards does the largest number of superintendent searches in the state of New Jersey. 85% of all applicants to our searches see the vacancy on our website. So it gets a lot of traffic from superintendents and those who are looking to become superintendents. We also posted to other online job sites and other professional organizations like the Superintendents Association, the Supervisors and Principals Association, the Business Officials Association, and several of the colleges that specialize in education in New Jersey. We also, because we do so many searches throughout the years, we have a database of over 700 applicants to various searches that every time we advertise a search on New Jersey School Board's website, those individuals receive an email notifying them that there's a new search in New Jersey, and they can go to our website to see what it is. And then we also posted 30 to 39 county and college education offices. And then the last point I'll make is that your search is also a national search. We are members, New Jersey School Board Associations are members of the National School Board Association, and the SAW online application tool that we use to collect applications is a national tool. And once we posted Trenton's search into the tool across the nation, anybody affiliated with the National School Board Association could see Trenton's Superintendent of Schools position advertisement. The process that the board is following, obviously it started off with getting the position advertised. We did some legwork in putting a survey together, and then we went out to the community asking the stakeholders to give us your inputs. Tonight, we're going to be reviewing those in this virtual forum. Following this forum, the board will start the review process of the applications. We've collected applications, we've been collecting them. It's time, once we complete the virtual forum, the board will be meeting over the next week to review all of the applicants. And then as a board, they will determine of those applicants, which ones are they want to select to bring in for interviews. Once we've identified the interview candidates, I will schedule their interviews, and the board will conduct the interviews. There will be a couple of rounds of interviews. Hopefully at the end of the last round, there will be someone who really knocks the socks off of the board, is the right fit, the perfect person that they believe can take the Trenton Public School District forward, and that they will identify their finalist. Once they identify their finalists, they'll check they'll do reference checks, and then once everything is blessed by the board, they will then enter into contract negotiations with the candidate. Once terms and conditions are agreed to, they'll submit that to the executive county superintendent. Once they receive the letter back from the executive county superintendent that the contract has been approved, then and only then is the board allowed to now put the new superintendent on the agenda at a public meeting to introduce the new superintendent and to take a vote to appoint the new superintendent. The big thing at the bottom of this chart I'll mention, this process is a totally confidential process. Everything that the board is doing is done in executive session because it is a confidential process. And all of the board members on the Board of Education are bound to confidentiality through the Code of Ethics. So it's important, and they understand that it's important that none of the information that once we get into the application review and interviews can be divulged because of the state statutes that govern the Code of Ethics. This is the tentative timeline. Tonight we're doing the community forum. As I said, within the next week, by mid-March, we'll have reviewed all of the applicants. The board will have selected their first round interview candidates. By late March, we will conduct the first round interviews. And then at the end of the first round, the board will determine of the first round interview candidates, which ones they want to bring back for a second round of interviews. We'll conduct those interviews in early April. And then hopefully by the end of those second rounds, there will be a finalist that the board feels very strongly about. They will then embark on doing their reference checks, beginning the contract negotiations and getting the approvals from the executive county superintendent. And then the hope is no later than the end of May, between April and May, we will have a public board meeting where the board can publicly introduce the new superintendent, take a vote and appoint their new superintendent. The goal is to hopefully have new superintendent on board by July 1. But that will be dependent upon obviously them finding the right candidate. And then once they've found the right candidate, it will also be a function of how many days notice that candidate has to give to the district that they're coming from, because there is a legal contractual requirement. It can be, anywhere from 60 to 150 days, depending on their contract by law. So it will depend, the candidate would negotiate with the district they're leaving, but hopefully we'll be able to get that person on board by 1 July or shortly thereafter. So that's the process. Let's jump into the survey. I want to tell you on behalf of the board, thank you so much to the community and all of the stakeholders for going online and participating. This is truly important information that the board will look at and understand, and it will help frame their thought processes as we get into selecting the applicants, developing interview questions, and then ultimately doing the interviews and assessing the candidates as we hopefully work our way to that perfect candidate for the Trenton Public School District. We had 380 survey responses. That's a great turnout. That's a large number of participants. Really do appreciate it. And you can see the breakdown of the categories of folks who took the time to log into the survey and take the survey. And you can see that 133 parents, and then the next large group is 191 Trenton Public Schools district employees. So that's, basically half of the respondents were from the staff of the Trenton Public Schools. The large percentage of the balance were parents and guardians of Trenton Public School students. So very good turnout and good inputs. Both of those populations definitely have a strong stake in the next the success of the next superintendent. One of the questions that we asked was, we wanted to get a feel for how many, students were enrolled in each of the respondents' families. And as you can see, 185 had 0 students. So that's just about half of the respondents didn't have students in the district, but they felt strongly enough that it was important enough for them to be a part of this process that they joined the survey. They took the survey to give their inputs, which is which is a positive indicator. The question 8 asked, how much did you agree or disagree that each of the following should be a goal of the new superintendent? Before I talk further on this, I want to mention the Board of Education worked on developing the responses, the questions and the responses for this survey. So these are not things that New Jersey School Board threw up into a survey to send to everyone. This was the Board of Education who developed the questions and the information and the feedback they were looking for from their community. So on this question, you can see that improving relationships amongst school personnel, that one had between strongly agree and agree, 89% of the respondents responded to that one as strongly agree or agree. The second one, which was continuing curriculum and instruction for students, between strongly agree and agree, 96% selected that. Improved student performance and graduation rates, 95% selected the top two categories, strongly agree or agree. Number 4 was build strong relationships with local stakeholders and community organizations. 92% felt it was that they strongly agreed or agreed with that as a goal. Ensuring that our ESL population is properly supported. 92% felt that it was something that should be part of the superintendent's responsibilities when they come on board. 6, to integrate technology into instructional learning. That one had about 89% of the respondents feeling strongly about that. And then the last one was address social and emotional needs of staff and students. 94% felt that they strongly agreed or agreed with that as a goal. Of these 7 areas, the top 2 were number 2, continuing improving curriculum and instruction for students, and number 3, improve student performance and graduation rates. Question 9, we asked everyone to rate each of the following according to how important you believe each superintendent's educational characteristic is to the growth and achievement of Trenton Public School students. On the first one, strong instructional background, 97% felt it was important or somewhat important, the highest 2 ratings. That the superintendent have a proven track record of increasing student performance. That one received 95% of important or somewhat important, of the highest 2 ratings. Knows the school laws and regulations for New Jersey. That received 96% of the highest ratings. Innovative and ready to explore new strategies and ideas. This one received 97% of the highest ratings. Someone who has experience as a superintendent. That one received 90%. Dedicated to forming relationships and local community organizations and businesses. That received 92% of the highest ratings. Dedicated to creating career pathways for students in career and technical education programs. That one received 95% of the highest ratings. Ability to promote parental involvement. That one received 96% of the highest ratings. Out of all of these educational characteristics, the top 2 that received the highest ratings were strong instructional background and innovative and ready to explore new strategies and ideas. Both of those received 97%. Looking at question 10, we asked, to what extent do the following character traits make a good superintendent? And when you look at bridge builder or a unifier, 98% felt it was significant or somewhat significant. When looking at transparency, approximately 100% felt that transparency was an important character trait of a good superintendent. The next one was honesty, being honest. Just about 100% felt that was a character trait of a good superintendent, was being honest. Empathy, being empathetic, 98% felt that was a good character trait of a good superintendent. Being a good listener, 98% felt that was a good character trait. Strong and determined, 96% felt that it was significant or somewhat significant. Being patient, got 98% of the highest ratings, and being compassionate received 98%. The top 2 of these character traits were transparency at almost 100% and honesty at almost 100%. Then we asked several following questions, which asked you to tell us how important to you, with 1 being not important and 5 being very important. What you can see for each question was the number of people who responded to that question and then what the average was of their ratings. The first question was, how important to you is a superintendent who can heal and reunite the school district, stakeholders, and the larger Trenton community? That one, the average score for that one was 4.57 out of 5.0 being very important. Number 12 was, how important to you is a superintendent who knows and understands an urban school district like Trenton? That one received an average of 4.69 on a 5.0 scale. Question 13 was, how important to you is a superintendent who understands a community who has dealt with and or is dealing with trauma? That one received an average score of 4.66 on a 5.0 scale. Question 14, how important to you is a superintendent who knows and understands the Trenton culture, population, and social climate? That one received an average score of 4.56. Question 15 was, how important to you is a superintendent who is approachable and relatable? That one received a score of 4.65 on average. Number 16, how important to you is a superintendent who is transparent and a strong communicator? That one received a 4.75 score. And I will point out to you that that was the highest of these types of questions. That was the highest score that was given by the stakeholders. And I'll mention that because if you remember just a couple of charts back, we talked about character traits. Transparency and honesty received almost 100% of the highest ratings. So that tells me as the consultant, as the outsider looking in, you as a community, and all your stakeholders, place a high value on a superintendent that has high integrity, is honest and transparent, with the board, the staff, and the community and the students. Question 17, how important to you is a superintendent who encourages parental and community involvement in the schools? This received a 4.63 average score. And then 18 was, how important to you is a superintendent who prioritizes special populations, such as special education, English as a second language, overage and undercredited students? This one received an average score of 4.54. All of them are important, and you can see how across a population on average of about 370 or so folks who responded to each of these questions, you can see how important these items are in the eyes of our stakeholders. And then we asked was an open question. It was, if you could ask the superintendent candidates one question, what would you ask? We had out of the 380, 258 participants put a response in, put a question in the box. So we collected 258 responses. The board will have we'll have all 258 questions that were recommended. And that's important because, as Teron pointed out, this information, this data, as well as these questions of what folks out there would think to ask, may help shape and shape the kind of questions that the board will be putting together for their interviews. Just some sample responses here. Like I said, there were 258. I pulled 6 of them just to show you some a sampling of some of the responses. The first one, what would your first 100 days in office look like? What are your thoughts about reconfiguring Trenton Public Schools? That's an initiative that the board and the district is looking at. Turnover in leadership is the downfall of this district. Do you plan to stay for the long run? And I think I can tell you that the board is looking for someone that hopefully will be here for the long haul, because that's how you make a difference in a district for the children. Here's a simple question. Why you? I really like that one. I had thought about that one before, but pretty simple, basic. Why you? Why should the board hire you? What do you plan to do to assist the children in their transition back into school after COVID-19? And then the last sample I pulled out, how will you support the mental and physical well-being of students, teachers, and other district personnel to maximize a safe and productive learning environment? So as you can see, I just pulled a sampling, but there are quite a few more insightful questions that people put down that if they had one chance, this was the question that they would want to ask. Definitely a lot of good information, and I know the board will truly appreciate the inputs that you all gave to them. So that's the gist of the questions that the survey participants answered. At this time, we'll open it up for questions and comments, and I'll do a stop sharing, and we'll open it up for questions.
All right, so before we take questions, I just want to explain to people who are not aware of how to raise their hands. Again, I'm not, I was a little confused on how to do it myself. So what we're going to do is, if you would like to speak, you can raise your hand electronically. For those of you who are using either a PC or your laptop, if you look at the bottom of your screen and you see a button that says reactions, if you click that button, you'll see some words that come across that say raise hands, and you can raise hand and you can push it that way. If you're on an iPad, there's an option that says more, and then you click that button and you can raise your hand. If you're unable to complete those functions, I am in the chat now. And if you can put your question there, I'll be reiterating them to either answer, for Jesse to answer, or for one of the board members who are here to answer. Okay, I believe the first person that had their hand up was Miss Janice Williams. So would you like to start, Miss Williams? We can't hear you, I'm sorry, you're on mute.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to address the committee and ask some questions. I guess these will all be directed to Jesse. First of all, Jesse, I'm trying to comprehend the value of what this survey is telling us, because when you look at 85,000 residents or more in the city of Trenton, over 11,000 students that we service in this district, and you look at the return rate, that number one is problematic. And it tells me that we may have to put a pause on bringing in a new leader until we can address some of those issues. And when you look at who's on this call tonight, 3/4 are school board administrators between TA and TASA, very little parents and community. That's also problematic, because we're not hearing from the people that we need to hear from. And this is a very critical decision. We are the largest employer in the city of Trenton. How goes our school district goes to city of Trenton, both economically, and which is critical. And we need to address that elephant that's in the room, because we're not doing that. And I don't know if we need to take a pause for a minute here, because you had a lot of surveys from district staff. Of course, we know what we want in a superintendent, but we are employees being paid by the district to provide a service to the parents and the community residents of the city of Trenton. And we're not hearing from them. And what's even more problematic is the number of people responding that do not have children. That should be a red flag for us. Why are we having so few parents responding to what they're looking for in a superintendent? What are we doing so wrong in this district? So maybe at this point, I'm just saying that we need to maybe pause continue with what we're doing already now until we address some of those other ills that we're being faced with in this district. Because right now with this survey, I don't see the value of it because it's not reaching the people that we need it to reach.
Well,
I guess that's more of a comment than you're having to respond.
Right,
but I don't see the value because it's not reaching the people that we really need it to reach. And that's problematic for me because I'm a child advocate and I want to hear from our parents. So it's very problematic. 85,000 residents, 11,000 students, less than 150 parents. You can't tell me that we have that few parents not interested in the well-being and welfare of the children and the education that they're receiving here in the district and what they see as a good leader for the district. So I think maybe we need to pause and address some of those ills before we even begin to look for a permanent superintendent, because there's something wrong in our house. There's something wrong with our family and we need to fix it. And I don't know about fixing it if it's a new superintendent right now. So that's more of a comment. Thank you. You don't have to respond, Jesse.
No, but I appreciate your comment. But I do know that, the survey itself was broadly advertised. And access to it was available to every stakeholder in the city of Trenton. But
I'm not questioning that. I'm just questioning the value of what we're being presented. And exactly when you said it was a great turnaround rate, that's not true. When you have 85,000 residents, 11,000 students, it's dismal. It's dismal, and that. But I know you have to put a different spin on it. But we need to address the ill that's in our house before we move forward with bringing a new superintendent in, because we have some issues and problems that we first need to resolve with our parents, the main people that need to be participatory in here. This call right now is 3/4 full of administrators and teachers. We're not hearing from the voices and the lenses that we need to hear from, who are the taxpayers, who are, you know what I'm saying? I'm very dismayed. We may need to pause and not and get our house in order before we need to bring in a new CEO.
You know what? I appreciate Ms. Williams' comment because I am very appreciative of the parents who participated. I would have liked to seen more parents participate and more students participate. That was my main focus, is to hear from those particular parties. Again, I wish we did have a better turnout with the parents. However, I am okay with the turnout that we had. So to reiterate her point, if any parents that are out there that did not get a chance to respond, we'll put the survey back up there to give people a chance to respond. You have my email address. They're posted publicly on our website. Feel free to write us a quick note or a letter to the board or email giving your piece. And we're always open to putting that in addition to the rest of the information that we have. Okay, next is Mr. Davis, Mr. Kevin Davis. I see your hands. I'm just going across the board. So when your hand is raised, it looks like it comes up for me. So I'll do it in that order.
Okay, hello. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I am concerned about the methodology of the survey. And I think more, it doesn't give us a true picture of what the parents and folks in our district think. It only tells us about the folks who actually responded to the survey. And the survey was only available online for people who where maybe a digital divide. So those are people that we hadn't heard from. So it questions the reliability and the validity. If we take this survey again, will we get the same results for the reliability? And then the validity, is the survey saying what we said it's going to say? So that's just my thought on it. But my true concern is, as a parent, as someone who came through the district, who support the district, that our problem isn't selecting a superintendent. Our problem is keeping a superintendent. And I don't know what we can do to fix that, but maybe within as you're negotiating the contract with whoever is selected, that there's some stipulations in there that going to guarantee that they're going to be here, because we should not be here. And my fear is that in 2 years, we'll be at the same juncture looking for another superintendent. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thanks for your comments. Thank you.
I see next Curtis Aubrey. Mr. Arbery, you are muted.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having this meeting and including us. What I wonder, if I could ask Jesse, I can't see your last name to remember, say Jesse Adams, since one of the questions that people asked when they wrote in was having a leader that stayed in place. And I really am interested in that, a leader that stays in place. And I'm also interested in someone who knows us well. The truth is, the people who are running it right now, all the leaders, I find great affinity to. I think there's a lot of initiative. I'm not sure what my union brethren will say, but there's a lot to be said for growing talent from within. Have you done, so here's the question. Have you done any correlate work to say what factors predict someone staying a long time?
No, I haven't, but I can tell you that, right, since if you all remember, the salary caps were put into place, and we don't have data since the caps were rescinded, but because of the once the caps were, the average superintendent stay in a district was approximately 2.8 years. So that turnover is something that's been occurring. What we're hoping is that with the lifting of the caps, now that boards can truly negotiate, to keep a superintendent, especially one that's, hitting home runs for the district, that we're going to see that trend turn around, and that there will be superintendents who will stay longer. But for quite a few years, it was averaging somewhere around 2.8 years turnaround for superintendents. And so, I don't know if it was, you can infer that it was being driven by, hey, if I'm capped, my only way I can improve my my livelihood to pay the bills for my family is to actually leave a district, because this district can't by law pay me more. So I have to go look for a bigger district or a higher paying district to move to. Hopefully with the cap going away, that will change. Obviously every district will negotiate based on what the community can afford, because it's all, part of what the budget says and what the community can afford to pay for a superintendent. And that's part of the responsibilities of a board. They have that heavy weight on their shoulder to, especially when you have a great superintendent, you don't want to lose that superintendent. There's that balancing act, right?
Yeah.
From a fiduciary responsibility, and then their responsibility to giving the students the best that they can have through this educational leader. So, but thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Ms. Talithia Duncan.
Okay, good evening. So I just want to reiterate what was said by Janice and Kevin Davis. I think it's sad that we think 380 participants is a great turnout. I think it's very dismal. I don't think it gives you the pulse of the community, of the parents, of the workers, or the employees of the district. I also want to direct you back to the chat in which one of my members stated, which I've been stating at multiple board meetings, when are we going to be able to come to the table? When we picked Mr. Duran, the community and selected employees were invited to the board office to meet with the 3 finalists, to have a conversation and to give our opinion. Before Mr. Lee got here, all the union heads and community members were invited to the board office to have a conversation with the board about what we expected in leadership. In all my speeches that I've been doing at the Board of Education meetings, I have been asking, when was this going to take place? I was told, oh, we did that whenever, but that was 1.5 years ago. And just like the COVID numbers 1.5 years ago, everything is different. You have new leadership within the teacher ranks, within the administration ranks, within the secretary ranks. So what may have been relevant 18 months ago may not be relevant now. And so I am wondering when we will get the opportunity to really have a seat at the table. And while I appreciate the survey, I don't believe the survey could capture what we could so eloquently put into words should we be offered a seat at the table. And my final point is, because of the dismal response of the surveys, another one of my members had great ideas and suggestions in the chats about getting the survey in hands of more parents and community members, since it was only offered online. A suggestion, take it to the vaccination sites, share it like you're sharing a reopening survey, send it to the churches, etc. So I'm hoping that we're not just talking to be talking, and that some of our suggestions are taken very seriously, because I honestly don't think that we can make a good choice that will benefit the staff, parents, employees, or community members based on 380 responses, respectfully. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan. I want to piggyback off what she said also, and if anyone is trying to figure out what was said in the chat, someone mentioned that the public was able to speak to the three finalists, I guess get a sense of who they are. I don't think that's a bad idea. I actually think that's a good idea, but it is something I need to bring to the board to see if this is something that we can do. I'm not opposed to that at all. So if that is, again, I'll bring that to the board and see how they feel about that, but I think it's actually a good idea. So thank you for your comment. And again, I'm very open to keeping the survey up so we can get some more feedback. I have no issue with that, and kind of talking through other ways to engage the public more broadly. All right, our next comment is from Jackie Ivey. Ms. Ivey? Oh, I see you. Okay, you must, oh, there you go. There we go, thank you.
Okay, sorry, it said I was not able to unmute myself. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jackie Ivey. I am a product of Trenton Public Schools. I also am a representative of Arts for Any Given Child Trenton. Right now, we are partnering with the district with regards to the Visual and Performing Arts Department. And one of the questions that I wanted to include, and I didn't get a chance to complete the survey, and I hope to complete the survey. One of the questions I would like to have included in the interview is where do the arts and arts integration stand or rate in terms of priority for the new superintendent? One of the reasons we're asking that it become, a priority is, I think one of the questions about improving curriculum that received a high mark wasn't specifically addressing arts and arts integration, but we do know that having the arts in all of the levels, grade levels, there's a lot of research and data that shows that arts and arts integration help improve student what am I trying to say? Student performance. Thank you. So I wanted to ensure that we make sure that that's a priority, and that becomes a question for the incoming superintendent, whoever that may be. And also, I did hear at the beginning of the meeting that although for this evening, the opportunity for the community to speak and also the potential to expand the survey may be granted to the community. But I did hear at the very beginning that at the end of the day, it is the Board of Education that makes the final decision. So whether there's input from the community, whether there's input from parents, teachers, staff, based on what I've seen this evening, it's the ultimate decision is the Board of Education. So I just wanted to emphasize that. And thank you for allowing me to speak this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Ivey. I will definitely note that about integration with the arts. I think that is a very important question, especially because we see our students at every board meeting displaying their artistic talents, whether through song or dance or musical expression. And we really do honor that as a district. So that is a great question that I am notating as you speak, okay? I don't see any more hands raised. So I want one more opportunity to get hands raised. I'm gonna look at you all on the screen. If you don't know that function, feel free to raise your hand literally, and I will find you. If not, I'll go to the comments that are in the chat, but I'm gonna take one last look to see who, wait, I see a hand. One last look. Oh, I think Talithia, are you raising your hand for another comment?
Yes, I just wanted to let you know someone in the chat asked how many applicants did we have, and
Yes,
I thought it was between 27 and 29 based on our last meeting, but I wasn't sure. I didn't want to give inaccurate information.
Thank you. Jesse, can you, I think 29, but Jesse.
29. 29 is the number.
Okay. All right. Any more hands? Come on, don't be shy.
F. Green.
Green. I see you. Okay, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
So good evening. I think this is another critical juncture, and we just went through this process of showing what the blueprint is. When we dealt with the turf field in city council, which was a whole nother institution, a whole nother form of government and governance. But the board, the district, the leadership team laid out what the community needed to do. And we collectively and comprehensively laid pressure to the council members to do what was needed. And we got the bonds approved. You have to do the same thing here now. You have to engage this community. You have to reach to these parents, and you have to do it with a full-fledged effort. You have to also remember there's deep disappointment here. We've had a high turnover of superintendents. People really are of the sentiment that nobody really cares about us. Most that come here, and I was a fan of Mr. Legal. I won't go there. He had to do what he had to do. But most superintendents come here and it becomes a stepping stone to somewhere else. That's part of the thought process. And then the last piece is we've been to a number of community sessions. We've convinced people to take off work, came to community forums. We've given our contribution and it arrived at the board, and what we desired as a community wasn't heard. So I'm saying to you, part of the frustration is we speak, we care, we commit, we invest, and our voices aren't heard. We're never going to win this war if the board, the leadership team does not engage, empower, and elevate the community to move with you in the war that we're fighting. And I would just say, look for familiarity too. I'm always a big advocate of promoting from within. We have amazing people right here, but we always seem to think that we have to go outside of Trenton to find leadership for Trenton. These people coming in will have a hell of a job trying to catch the ground on this curve. Not even talking about what's going on with the pandemic, but all of the social and institutional issues in terms of being birthed into concentrated poverty, dealing with the violence in our community, and just our overall lack of resources being marginalized and oppressed as we are as an inner city. It is a monumental lift. And without the community being there, not just for this round of the fight, but to daily get up and know that the number one institution in this city is our school district, then we won't win. So I'm just saying, please, as you engage us, make opportunities to involve us, but also when we participate in the process, do not wait to the fourth quarter and then negate what we've said, what we've done, because that's the biggest piece. People feel like they aren't being heard, and then when they do speak, they're not being acknowledged. And we do care about this, and we respect the work that you're doing. And we want to work with you to elevate our school district. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Green. I see Miss Latanya Williams.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. It's interesting that Mr. Green just said that, because I was almost thinking kind of the same thing. It's like I noticed that, like, my son, he's in Kilmer, and so he wasn't there last year. He was in Gregory. So we and just speaking to some of the other parents that I bonded with, because my child was in Gregory from kindergarten through 5th grade. Like, a lot of us feel lost we don't feel like we even have a voice in the system anymore, because we used to be involved in that school. And because now of COVID, we're not here, we're not able to connect, and we don't really have that bond with this school anymore, and it's weird. Like, everything is like a hassle trying to get everything done. So even for the superintendent, I'm like, well, they talking about the superintendent. I'm just trying to get my child to get in class, and it's hard, because I feel like, if when you're in the school for so long, if I was to call Gregory and tell them that my son didn't have a class that he needed, he'd have that class ASAP, but no, nobody returns your calls. It's like, I feel like the parents who are new to the schools, we don't matter.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. I sent you a message directly. It's not a public message, but I sent it to you directly because you mentioned an issue that you may be having. So if you can just reply back to my message and leave your contact information, I want to put that in the hands of the person that can get back to you. And thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else? Is there any students online that would love to speak to the board today and the rest of the community? Any students here? Let's see. Okay, I do not see none. So I'm going to start addressing some of the comments that are in the chat room quickly. And the first one we went over recently about the community being a part of the selection process by having the final candidates come before them. I addressed that. And let's see, I saw a lot of good recommendations about getting the survey in the hands of community members. A lot of good suggestions there. I did not see any further questions. Just bear with me. I want to make sure that I am not missing any questions. But I am notating every suggestion that was made about getting the survey out. I see a new message, 1 second. Okay, so we are at the point in the agenda now where I want to open this up for board members to comment if they choose to. And I first would like to start with our board president, Ms. Addie Daniels-Lane.
Okay, so good afternoon. Certainly, I want to thank everyone who took the opportunity to participate tonight. And certainly, we appreciate your feedback, and we hear your voices, and we know that they are important to this process moving forward. As Teron indicated, I too took a look at some of the questions in the chat and some of the some of the proposed solutions in terms of getting more community folks to respond to the survey. And again, I thank you for those suggestions in terms of the using the food distribution times on Wednesday, and also the vaccination sites. So those are some things that we can actually look into. And now that things are easing up a little bit, before there was this whole thing about not touching paper and not having paper surveys that go in and out and so on and so forth. And I think we're kind of getting past that particular point. So it may be that we're able to actually do that. So we'll do some research about making these surveys available at vaccination sites, and also when food distribution takes place on Wednesdays for the district. So those are some very good suggestions. As a board, as was noted, we have to discuss whatever concerns as a board, because there is not one particular board member that makes the decision. We make decisions collectively as a board. And so as Teron indicated, the other ideas about getting the community to be involved in the process of the final interviews of the superintendent, again, that has to be taken back to the board itself that will make a decision about that. And so, excuse me. And so certainly it is something that has been done in the past, and we do know that. However, sometimes there are candidates who have certain restrictions in terms of their current employment that kind of prohibits them from being in the public in pursuit of another particular position. So sometimes those kinds of things actually occur. But again, we'll work to see what the whole board, in fact, is amenable to actually doing and move forward in that particular manner. Right now, I think you all know that we have an acting superintendent in place, and that acting superintendent is one of our former principals who was in the district for a long time and actually was serving in the capacity of assistant superintendent. And so we certainly appreciate the service that he is actually rendering to the district at this time and helping things to move forward. And again, I would just say to you to stay tuned. We'll take some of your suggestions, certainly reopen the survey, get the survey out to different places, and then again, take a look at all of the feedback that comes in just to see where we go in this process of our search for a superintendent. So thank you. Board member Yolanda Lopez, if you're available to unmute, or Jeannie Weekland.
Yes, I just want to say that I do tend to agree that we need to resubmit the survey to the public and that we need to do this as soon as possible. And the other thing I want to emphasize is that, as one of Ms. Ivey said, ultimately the board as a whole is the one that makes the decision of who is to be hired. We do so taking into consideration that we hear from the community. So yes, ultimately we make the decision, but that decision is formed, shaped, and influenced by everything that the unions, the stakeholders, the parents, and students tell us. So we are hearing you, and hopefully we can resubmit this survey. There were some good ideas on getting it out, especially to the parents on the chat feedback. So our desire is to get the most qualified person as soon as possible in the position to take this district forward where it could be and should be shining.
Thank you, Yolanda. I'm going to just interject really quickly because there's a person raising their hand and I don't want to miss an opportunity for a parent or a student or anyone else to speak. So Amy Marie G, you there? Okay, there you go. You're on mute. I'm sorry, you're on mute.
Okay, there you go. Sorry about that. So I just wanted to go back on to what Ms. Yolanda had said about the survey. I understand that the survey, I've been in the district for a very long time. I have 4 children. I have 2 left in the district to get pushed through. So I've seen so many change of hands. I also been on a parent advisory council, and my experience on that was the school board and the members and the union always say that you take into account of the parents, and I realize that, and the stakeholders and stuff like that. And like it said, it is at the end of the day, the board's choice to choose the right person for that. And I think the survey is great, but we have to really take into account that the parents whose students are in this school, and trying to get the best education that they can get. And it's just really sad that we cannot keep a superintendent. And that's the biggest thing, is we need to fix the district of why these superintendents are not staying, to support, our students. And I have kid, it's really just sad. And I just hate to have us do this survey, reopen the survey, which I think is a great idea, to reopen the survey to try to get more parents out there. But are you really, really going to consider what we parents want out of a superintendent? My whole thing is somebody's going to stay. Somebody needs to stay for more than a year, more than 3 years. Somebody that's going to invest in this district. It's frustrating as me as a parent. Lately I've been, on Zoom meetings, in these community things, trying to listen, trying to voice my opinion about things. When we had board meetings, I would go to a few, but I just sat back and observed. My job is not able for me to come in person, but it's frustrating. And, you guys say, that you'll take us into account of what we want in a superintendent. And yes, you need to find the best person, You could have the best candidate, but he has to be committed or she has to be committed to this district, to the students, you know, and it's just frustrating. And then you get these parents who are frustrated as me, who don't want to do a survey or don't want to take and invest in the district because you guys don't listen. You don't, you know, and I've experienced that, you know, personally. I can witness that. I've testified. I've been on parent advisory counseling. I've been on PTO. And it's frustrating. So best of luck, but I agree with Ms. Janice Williams about, and you need to fix what's fixed before you get a superintendent or get one that's really going to be committed. And just really please take into accountability of, you know, and make this person accountable, or you guys need to be accountable because you guys are the people that are hiring these people. And, you know, I see the little survey that yes, honesty is one of them, but honestly, there's a lot more to being a superintendent than just being honest. It's more about investing in the students and what's best for our students to become better people in this community and be, you know, adults and do the right thing instead of not, you know, being misguided. You know, that's all I have to say. So I apologize, but I'm frustrated. Like,
no need to apologize, Miss.
I've been in this district for a very long time. I had a daughter graduate 2010. A daughter that just graduated 2020. I have a son who will graduate 22 or 21. And then I have my little one that's going into 9th grade next year. So,
yeah,
you know, I try to be so supportive, but when you don't listen to the parents, you really don't listen, and you guys decide to do what you want to do and think what's best. I mean, I'm not saying we know what's best, but like I said, you can get the best candidate, best credentials, references, whatever. It's the commitment. The commitment is the biggest thing.
No, I thank you for that.
You're welcome.
No, I thank you for that. I appreciate your comments. And to say the public's viewpoint will absolutely be taken into consideration. Listen, we're not here to waste anyone's time or effort, right? We know that you have a lot of things to manage in your lives. And the last thing that we want to do is pull you into a meeting at 6 o'clock. With everything on your plate, if we're going to do this just to check a box. I'm not interested in that at all, to be completely honest. And I mentioned in chat box, you know, even in my daytime job, I don't like to make decisions in the vacuum. More heads are always better than one. And that's the approach on this board. You know, I think it's also important to note that I'm a parent too. You can hear my little one in the background. He's about to start talking right now. And I would assume that the same things that you want out of a superintendent are the same things that I want. I'm willing to bet that we want the same things out of a superintendent, that your vision and my vision, they aren't far apart at all. So just know that. And if current board members aren't parents, they are parents to older kids who've been in the system, who went through the system. They've been invested. Our president has been a principal and a teacher. She gets it. You know, a lot of people on this board, all of us just understand the parenting piece and the importance of having a leader that's going to groom and train and make sure that your kid is guided in the right direction. So I'm willing to bet again that you and I have similar views on what's important out of a superintendent, and your insight will definitely be taken into consideration. Okay, so is there any more board members on the call that would like to make a comment before we close up?
Teron, I'd just like to say that I certainly echo your comments, and thank you for sharing that. And parent Miss Amy Marie, certainly we feel your passion, and certainly you know, I'm happy to hear that your children have moved through the district successfully, and certainly you're looking forward to, as you said, pushing through the remaining two, the one that's heading toward 9th grade. So again, our visions are similar. I want, having been a graduate of the district myself, I certainly want what's best for the children that are there. I feel like I was able to do, you know, quite a few things based on the opportunities that I was given within the district, and certainly I want that for every other child. And so our visions aren't that far off. You know, sometimes we may not agree on certain things, but again, in terms of wanting the best for children in Trenton, I am one of them. I can speak to almost 50 years being in the district, 37 years as an educator, 13 years as a student, 50 plus, and 4 or 5 years on the board. So again, my commitment is here with the district. And certainly I thank all the board members that are here. it is a commitment, right? And again, we may not always agree on certain things, but just agree on, we do agree on, we are looking for what's best for our students, right? Because this is our city, our community. And again, the only way that we can succeed is to, in fact, push our young people forward and then figure out how to keep them in our community. Because we know that a lot of times our students, they get what they get and they leave, they're gone, right? Because we don't have a lot to offer them. So those are some things we have to work on. But again, our vision for wanting the best for our children is in fact the same. So again, thank you for those comments. And again, I feel your passion.
Okay, so we are going to ensure that we repost that survey and explore opportunities how to get that distributed broadly, as you guys have stated. We truly appreciate your all your great ideas that you have left in the message box. I'm taking notes. I'm going to have this printed out to distribute to the board. And we're definitely going to discuss that option of, you know, whether it's even possible. And we meant to talk that over with our legal counsel of having the candidates come before us and do that. If we can do it, I'm open for it. But again, I'm only one, so I'll have to convince I may not have to do much convincing, but we'll see how the other 7 feel about that, okay? So I truly appreciate your time. Truly appreciate your time. And I'm glad that we were able to come together to talk about this important discussion as we make way for our new district leader. So good night and last words, you got it.
One last thing, I see a question in the chat, which is a
okay.
question for us in terms of if we reopen the survey, when will the timeline and interview questions be revised? So that's something that we can actually talk about. You know, that's something that we as a board will actually talk about and see, you know, what actually we can do about revising our anticipated timeline and see how much longer we're going to allow the, you know, allow the survey to be open and then actually close it again with being able to take the steps, some of the steps that were suggested tonight. So give us a minute and then check back with the board webpage and actually the board meetings, and so that we can keep you apprised of what actually is going on. So thank you for that question.
All right, good night and take care.